Hey everybody, welcome to the first edition of Bleeding Cool's weekly recap of NBC's AP Bio, starring It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's Glenn Howerton and Patton Oswalt from Sci-Fi's Happy. This guy right here, hopefully you have seen do other recaps and reviews before. My name is Ray Fluck. I'm television beat writer for Bleeding Cool, and I'm going to be going over with you today my thoughts on the pilot, which just aired East Coast time, so I want to try and get this out to you as quickly as possible. I will, again, for those of you who know me, you know I go to my lore cheat sheet or composition books because I love composition books. So if anybody ever wants to get me anything, if anybody wants to set up like a GoFundMe to get like loads of composition books, I use those tons, but I digress. But I want to talk to you today about AP Bio, the first episode, the pilot episode, Catfish, and to give you a little background, what the show is about. Glenn Howerton plays Jack Griffin, who is a Harvard philosophy scholar who misses out on tenure. We find out something really bad happens involving an old guy putting him into a chokehold at a tenure meeting, and no school wants to hire him. He missed out on the Stanford job. He lost out to his rival Miles, who he is now committed to destroying on all levels of his life, as Jack finds himself stuck teaching AP Bio in Toledo, Ohio. He's coming into this with this mindset of like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here, so I'm going to use these kids for whatever I can get out of it. The great opening where he just says to them, and I just love the way it goes, I'm not going to learn anything from you. You're going to learn from me. I know way too much than all of you combined, so that's not going to happen. And just debunks all of these things. And it's funny because in a way, I like that they brought up the cliches, in a sense knowing that they're going to have to really kind of live up to those cliches. Because the one thing I will say about the show is the concept isn't original, and I don't think it's claiming to be. Just like Jack Griffin isn't really much of a difference from Dennis Reynolds, but for me being an It's Always Sunny fan, I don't really mind that. I'm actually cool with it. But there are enough subtle difference nuances that really make the show worth checking out. Let me just tell you, the pilot, to give you the spoiler, definitely should get you to want to check it out a little bit more. I'm not saying it's perfect. I think there are going to be changes and nuances they're going to do to the show as it goes along, because pilots are very rough. I refer back to Parks and Recreation and everybody, the way they just nuanced a lot of the characters, because I found them to just be a lot over the top and annoying in the beginning, and just came to really love them as it rolled along. I think AP Bio is one of those shows that can do that. But let me touch upon a couple of the characters. So you have Jack Griffin. Again, we know now, trying to get into that position in Stanford philosophy by destroying his rival Miles, which is a very interesting plan. We have Patton Oswalt as Principal Durbin, who in the typical Patton Oswalt role, and again, I don't mean that in a bad way, he does really well, the guy who's just trying to be good, trying to be decent, and doesn't want to be pushed around, but also just wants to be liked. You can see some very interesting friend chemistry going on, even as Jack is just pretty much running Durbin left and right. There's a really great scene later on at Jack's dad's mom's house that really, I think, sells the potential that they can have. But again, the biggest issue, I think, is getting used to those two characters. We get to introduce the students very, very, very early on. They're memorable. Devin, for example, sticks out very much as the kid who's getting bullied and the one who decides that he's going to mirror Jack and do things like piss on the house of his bully. So I think the students have a lot of potential there. Be honest with you, the names I'm still working on, which again I don't expect a lot from the pilot because I really wanted to see how they were going to sell me on Jack and how they're going to sell me on Durbin, and I think they did an excellent job doing that. Also, I want to give major credit to the three teachers in the teacher lounge, specifically to Lyric Lewis's Steph, who I think are just they have the makings of their own, at least their own episodes, if not something else, because I'm already impressed across the board with what we're getting from them, so I love seeing that. Some of the best lines, who's the Prince of Darkness? When Jack asks that when he first gets in the classroom to Devin, and when he basically is telling the kids all the time, don't write that down, I'm not teaching you anything, and really emphasizing them that he doesn't want this to be a learning experience. Now, of course, big spoiler, it ends up being a learning experience in the long run, but the way they handle it doesn't feel cheap, it doesn't feel forced, and you see the way Glenn Howerton really covers the character of Jack, that he doesn't just become a copy of Dennis. As much as I love seeing him very close to it, you'll see in scenes that, perfect example, he devises a plan to have the students catfish his rival to just destroy him on a personal level. And when the kids are reading the things back to him, my expectation was that he was just going to rip them apart. But he left all of them with at least some decent level of positivity and some hope and some smiles. And he actually really seemed impressed and proud with them. It was subtle and it was natural. So I give Howerton a lot of credit with regards to how he played it off. I thought it was very, very impressive. And the great scene, even when he tells them all, okay, great job, you can go home. And the kid's like, oh, we got other classes we have to go to. So again, I think we see a lot really, really moving forward on that. We end the episode, as I said before, we find out that things don't go well for Jack. All of Jack's plans to get his job back doesn't look like they're going to happen. He can't even get a decent chair for his office. He ends up not being able to hook up with his old high school sweetheart because guess what? She's actually grown up, moved on. She's an adult and not waiting around for him. So, of course, in typical smart Jack fashion, he gets drunk. He goes and pees on the hospital where she works at. He gets into a tussle with a police officer who breaks his arm and does some really interesting things to his face. Interestingly enough, he finds and makes his way into class, replacing a gym teacher who really personifies how bad having a teacher who isn't necessarily an AP bio teacher can be. And it's interesting that I think the kids get a little bit more of a deeper appreciation for the the education that Jack is giving them. So in the end, we have a confrontation with Durbin, with Jack, and with Devin at Jack's house. And just to give you a heads up, Jack's living in his dead mom's house. It looks exactly, down to velvet Jesus paintings and the chairlift thing that takes you up the stairs. All of it is still exactly the same, which just makes it creepier. But you have this moment where Jack basically says to Devin, look, don't, if you're going to do anything crazy, any extreme or anything like that, run it by me. And it's done under the guise of self-protection. But again, the way Howerton presents it, you see that there's not so much there's a softening. That there's always probably been some level of soft there. It's just under so much layer of screwed up mess. And trust me, having worked in higher education, I can understand how badly that can do that to you. So there was that promise, that hope, that Devin sees in him. And I think Jack even sees in himself. Again, I don't think we're getting an Archie Bunker softening for those of you who've ever watched or fans of All in the Family, but I think we're seeing a really good potential, a nuancing where you can see a softening of Jack and a really hardening of the class. And if NBC allows them to be edgy, which again, it's NBC, at least think more Hannibal NBC in regards to this, this could be a very, very interesting cutting-edge sitcom. It really, really could. But right now, pilot, which depends upon Durbin and which depend upon Jack, again, Oswalt and Howerton, I think did a fantastic job. I would strongly recommend giving this show a continued try. I'm not saying there's not going to be burnout. I think it's due the 6-episode try. I think at this point, I think the pilot was good and solid enough. Again, go into it with an open mind. Go into it not thinking that everything has to be like so 9-layered over the top. If you're just looking for some fun, potentially tasteless comedy, this I thought was a really, really good start. So definitely give it a shot. NBC, you're starting to carve out some very interesting little sitcoms there. So I give you kudos. You may not have the name recognition coolness of a Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, but if you keep doing shows like this, it's a good start. And again, in the drama-wise, one more cheap plug. Just, again, keep thinking about Hannibal. But, yeah, join me after the Olympics. We may do something a little beforehand, but after the Olympics, the show is returning to its regular Thursday time slot, so we're going to be doing more and more recaps then. But thank you guys for joining me. Hope you guys enjoy the show. If you're watching this before catching it, I hope you enjoy it, because, again, just some really good half-hour of fun. I don't regret it, and definitely worth checking out as the season rolls along. Take care.